Hi, welcome to Craft It Sweetly. I'm Deanna. Thanks so much for being here as usual. In this video, I wanted to show you a different technique that I haven't seen done before, so I thought, well, this might be an interesting design to create. So I have the pattern printed out already, and it's the ink saver. I've created it with my app, photobookart.com. And you just upload your photo, enter your height in inches. It must be in inches. If you enter it in centimeters, it's not going to work. And the number of pages. Download it, and then you pay the pattern charge on it, and then you're ready to go. So this is what you end up with. And this is what this is the pattern that I'm creating with the strips here. So I just wanted to show you what the finished design would look like. What does this do? I'll show you later in the video. And I'm cutting the strips as I usually do. I'll just show you if you're new to my channel. I'm using a Caterpillar. This is the Caterpillar Crop. And I do have links in the description box for coupons if you're interested in getting it. What I do like about this is that it has a light, as you can see right there. I turn it off and it's easy to see exactly the strip where I'm cutting it. I usually like to cut the top off first. So I'll cut the top right along the edge of the pattern. And I've had this cutter. This cutter is new, but I've had the Pro for a couple of years and still using the same blades on it. So no issues with the blade going dull. So again, I'm just going right down the strip here, and let me take this side off. Now what I do with the strips on here, so I want to just be able to take off this bottom part as well. So I'm just going to number these strips right on the edge here. You don't see this part. This is inside the book, so you can write the numbers over on the side here. Okay, and then once I have those, I can take off this bottom part, which has the numbers on it, for my pattern. And it's much easier than cutting one strip at a time. So there are my strips. Now I can cut these off very quickly here using the light, because I can just go back and forth with my cutter. Okay, so I've cut the strips. I'm gonna set this cutter aside and then bring my book folding stand over here. Now this part of it is just like the rest of the, this is 1719. Okay, so this part is just as usual with my other patterns where I'm cutting the strips and then folding them. And you can use a bone folder or use your fingers to press the strips. I have a video on that to see the difference. If you're looking for it, check out my channel and be sure to subscribe so that you get notifications when I upload another video. So you can just use, I'm gonna do it right here, you can just use your fingers to give it a press. And then once you put it in the book, if you find that the book is still too bulky, Suzanne is another master book folder. If you're on the Facebook groups, you will have seen her name. She has also suggested that you can, use a bone folder or a guitar pick, which was an awesome idea. I haven't tried it yet, but that's an option if you need to, after the fact, press this a little tighter to bring the book, closer in. Right now I'm just going to press these with my finger. And if you have a hard time pressing, folding this right down the middle, then I do have a video that shows you how to score these strips so that you can have an easier time folding them. Sometimes people have a hard time folding them down the middle. All right, so I have my book here, and I'll start off with my first page here just to show you. So I have my book here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut off the top, because I now can't do the books unless I do the invisible strips, which means I am trimming the top off these so that you can't see the the strip. All you'll see is the front of it. And then I use double-sided tape, which this one is out. So I will grab another one. Okay, there we go. What I like about these double-sided tapes is that they're refillable. So you just pop these open like this. And then all you have to replace is the center part instead of throwing out the outside, the case part. So I really do like these types of glue rollers. So this was my first strip. And I'm applying this on here. Always make sure that your strip is all the way against the page. If it's not, that's where you end up with the uneven look in the finished design. Oh, almost forgot to trim this one off. Now if you have a hard time trimming right at the tip, that cutter pillar does come in handy so that you can see exactly where you're cutting from the tip. But after doing a whole bunch of books with trimming the top off, it's pretty easy to trim it just using scissors. Okay, so I will continue this book. This is the same as I've done a lot of other videos and books. This page, and then I have probably 6 pages or so that I can work on. Let's see, 3, 4. So the one I cut plus another 4 pages that are going to be the same as usual as far as applying them to the book. Once I get to this part, which is the white part in the pattern, it's this right here, I will show you what the next step is. So I'm going to go and work on these strips, get these applied, and then I'll show you what I'll do, what the next step is for this part. I completed a good portion of the book, or maybe about a third, and this is what it looks like. So this is, again, the image here. So you can see, I guess, this part right there. I printed this just on regular copy paper, and it's low quality. I just wanted to show you initially about this circle here. But you can see that the colors are much more vibrant on here. And I do have a link below for the printer that I'm using, the paper that I'm using, in case you're interested in that or have questions about it. So this is obviously more vibrant. Now I'm getting to the circle part, and I did start that, but I'll show you what I'm going to do next with the circle part. Okay, now what I'll do is, and again, I've already started a little bit on the circle area, but I have my strips here, big pile of strips cut out, and this is what's left to do. All right, so I have my page here, and I'm using this kind of glue tape runner and applying this on here. Now the other thing is, this is the white area, where the circle is. So I want to put tape on either side of that. If you get some on the white area, that's fine also. So, whoops. So I'll keep that here just as a guide, and I'm going to add additional tape, which I don't normally do tape in the middle, but you'll see why I need tape in these spaces as well. Now I'll apply this. Make sure this is all the way in. Tip is completely flush. Strip is all the way in. Okay, so let me move these strips out of the way here for a second. Okay, now here's the trick that I want to show you with this video. I am using a punch cutter like this. It had a shield here to catch what you're punching out. I took it off because I want to be able to see where I'm working. This is about the 2.5 inch one, and the strips that I have, it gets to the point where I think I would need it about 3 inches as far as the cut, like towards the center here, and this is not wide enough for me to cut all the way across. So I had to order a different punch, and I'll link that punch in the description box. This one I've had quite a while. It's a Fiskars one, but again, the diameter is not wide enough. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in, and now if you notice, the image stops here. This is the white circle, and then it starts here again. So I want to line my circle cutter right where this, the circumference, or I should say the perimeter of the circle, lines up with each of those points. So you may take a little bit of maneuvering to make sure you're in the right spot, and then I'm just gonna punch that out. So now I'm left with a hole there. Okay, so I took that out of the picture. So I move this over. I'll do a couple more just to show you. So I'm putting it here. Again, I want to make sure that I'm covering tape in this area as well. Otherwise, once I cut this out, these will be loose. So I want to make sure I have tape at both ends here. And this is, you usually use the punch cutter like this. This is something you definitely want to do upside down, because you want to be able to see where the edge of it is in relation to your pattern. So just make sure you're right at the edges, and then punch. Okay, so a couple more, and then I'll show you what I have so far. Once I get my larger punch cutter, then I'll be able to finish the book. So in the meantime, I'm just going to finish obviously as much as I can with this cutter. Technique will do is create a half a sphere in your book. So instead of just folding this a 180 back, where you have kind of a squared off circle, which kind of sounds weird that it's squared off and it's a circle, but instead of it being just round and then the entire circle is back 180 degrees, however, whatever depth you want, this will actually create a sphere within your book, or I should say a half sphere, because the other half would be out of the book. So it'll create a cool effect with that. So this is the last strip I had here, so I'll cut this out. Whoops. And again, you can kind of go in, you can see that the pattern's right there and then right there. So I move it back until the edges of my circle reach exactly the edge of the pattern. And then I punch out. Okay, so now I'll show you my progress so far with the circle that I've done. Let me get this, make sure these are all straight. And this is what it's creating. It's kind of creating a, you can see it this way better maybe. And then once I have all the pages, it'll be even more visually, you know, it'll look much nicer. But you can see the sphere forming right there. Okay, so I will continue with this punch cutter that I have, and then once I have the deeper one, I'll finish the center area, which is going to take a lot more, I think, to which will require a bigger punch cutter for it. Okay, so I will continue my project here and then check back in and show you probably with the larger punch cutter where it stands. So I received the larger punch cutter, and this is 4 inches, 100 millimeters, so it's a pretty big punch cutter here. And I'm going to do the same thing I was doing previously. And now I'm going to use this to cut. And the thing with this punch cutter is that it's not this way to punch. I actually have to use it in reverse. So the lever is on the inside part, which makes it a little trickier, but definitely doable. So again, same thing as before. I want to make sure that that's my bottom mark and that's my top mark right there. And I move it in enough to make sure that I'm able to cut based on those marks right there, and then I cut it out. And same thing with this one, so I'll do one more. Okay, now take this off the stand and show you how far I've gotten with it and what it looks like so far. Let me move this out of the way. Fix any of these nesting pages if there are any. With it being cut at the top and bottom, you might find some additional ones that kind of want to sit inside of each other, but they just need fixing and then they're good to go. As you can see right there's another one. Okay, you can usually tell at the top where they're sitting. So there's what it looks like right there, and you can kind of see the writing at this point because I'm cutting so far into the book. But it's gonna create a cool effect because it's rounded. So I'll finish the rest of the book and then show you what it looks like, and I may add a border around here just to kind of clean it up. So I'll see that once I'm finished with the rest of it if I decide to do that there. But I do think that something very fine here would add to the design. Okay, I've completed the book and want to show you how the half sphere looks like inside the book. So it almost looks like, you know, a ball was taken and out of the book. When I created this image, I used, like I showed you the picture, it was a white circle, and I wasn't thinking ahead, and this area got a little tricky. So when I was cutting here, I didn't realize that I was along the edge of the circle. So I started to follow here. So that's where you can kind of see my mess up. So this kind of stuff happens, but you work with it. I wasn't about to throw out the book just because I messed up here. So I thought, well, what can I do? And along the way, I thought, well, I want to do something along the edge of this because I think it'll add a little bit of nice border to it. So I have these pearls that I want to add along the edge. And I will probably secure this with some glue just to make sure this doesn't go anywhere. But I'm just adding this right along the edge of the sphere, almost just as a decoration. So that's on one side, right there. And then at the top, I was going to do a pearl one. I didn't want to do pink on top as well. But I think that ties in nicely with the image that's down here. So I'll add pearl on top. Let's see how that looks. I may decide against it and just leave it as is. And I do think that kind of cleans up the border nicely instead of it being kind of just the design or just the edge of the cuts. So as far as this area, what I messed up, you can create some kusudama flowers. I have a couple of these flowers that I was just gonna glue on for accent pieces. Right there, and it kind of ties in with everything else. And it's also a nice decoration. So you can always embellish books once you're done with the photo art on them and designing them. That's not quite what I want it to be. Right there we go. So you can add additional embellishments if you'd like. And then I will add a stabilizer to the bottom of this book. But I do like that effect right there. And I'll do some other books because I have a couple of other ideas that can be done using this technique and using a hole punch for it. So I'll do a couple of other designs probably in the pipeline to create some additional designs using this technique. If you have any questions, please comment below. As usual, feel free to post your projects in my Facebook group if you use this technique. Would love to see how you use a punch cutter, I should say, to create designs. And I was using this tray to kind of hold it in place while I was working on it. But thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next project.